Hello and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by not one, but two co-hosts today. First up, it's Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor.
Hello.
Second up, it's Ellie.
She's silent.
She's silent. Ellie is Taylor's dog,
yes,
who is joining us today because she's just come back from the vets.
Yes. She's down for the count right now. We'll see if she stays that way. But if you hear squeaking on the mic, it's because she's awoken from her drug-induced coma.
And if anyone's worried, all is good with Ellie,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But she just wants some company. She doesn't want to be left alone today.
Yes, and if listeners want the full view behind the curtain, Daryl knows all is well with Ellie because Daryl, because of our schedule today, went with me to the vet to pick her up.
But all's good, but you may hear some Ellie whimpering in the background if Taylor doesn't give her enough attention.
But I did enjoy, sorry, one more thing about this. I did enjoy, because we've established previously that you and I are common law podcast married at this point. And I did enjoy when we walked in, the receptionist kind of gave me a look of like, you're usually here with a blonde woman. That's not that person, but okay, whatever. So it was just a momentary look of confusion by her, but it's all good. It was enjoyable. I'm glad you were there for the puppy.
Of course. I'm glad she's here now.
Yeah, as am I.
On today's show, we are going to be reviewing the US women's national team 2-0 win over New Zealand in the first game of the Olympics. We're also going to look ahead to the game against France, which is coming up this Saturday. And we're going to get to some of the responses to our forcibly drafted US men's national team players into the Premier League later today. We're also going to have a Fuji segment. Today's show is sponsored by the fine people of Fuji.
All of those things are true.
All those things are true. Up first, US men's national team, 2-0 win over New Zealand. The phrase I've seen the most, I think the first place I saw it was Charles Boehm. Good, but not impressive.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I mean, no, I don't think so. But I think that that's going to be the narrative for this team because they are so talented. They're the reigning world champions. There's going to be high expectations. So if anything doesn't go splendidly, then it's always going to be sort of like, I don't know.
Well, to quote you back to you, when you were talking to Steph Young as part of our preview, you said, I'm hype on this team, I think is the phrase you used. We're still friends, it's fine. And that you thought they were going to sort of dominate this Olympics. And against a team like New Zealand, you would expect that meant many, many goals and a really flashy performance. But instead what we got were 2 goals and 2 good goals. We'll talk about the goals, we'll break them down. But there weren't multiple shots. It's not as if the New Zealand keeper, whose name, sorry, escapes me right now, it was working really, really hard. Naylor. You know what I mean? It's not as if this was a flashy performance from the US.
No, but I would also make the argument that historically the United States in these types of tournaments, not great starters. We think back to the 2015 World Cup, lots of criticism in those first 3 group stage games, basically, that they weren't impressing, they didn't look cohesive, they didn't look like a unit, they didn't look like they were the type of team that was going to go far in the tournament. And I think for the U.S. to come out in this game, certainly not be like the most impressive we've ever seen them. Lots of misplaced passes, just a little bit of like a lack of communication, a lack of coordination. But generally speaking, to outshoot their opponent, 16-4, something along those lines, to, I'm going to say, have the majority of possession, create good opportunities, never really look like they were going to concede a goal, like they were in that much danger of conceding. I'd say overall a comprehensive victory, just not that thrilling of a victory.
Do we give some of the credit to New Zealand?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too, because I think they did. Like you said, they actually never look like scoring, right? But they did try to put pressure on the US occasionally. I did notice in the first couple of minutes they tried to press high, and
you spotted this one nicely
sort of skipped around and just went past.
I mean, it really was, because I didn't pick up on it. And your point was it was like the second minute, and we had this theory that maybe New Zealand were going to come out and press intermittently and kind of throw the US off a little bit. It seems like they tried to do that, and were just instantly knocked back by the quality of the US.
Our 18-year-old winger literally sidestepped the press. And carried on. But then at the other end, they did basically foul the US and get physical with the US enough to stop them getting forward too much.
Yes.
Right? Or to stop them threatening too much.
Yeah, and so you saw, early and often US players getting knocked down, drawing fouls, drawing cards. And it was a pretty good game by New Zealand in that regard, that it did seem to break up some of the flow. It made it hard for the U.S. to get into a good rhythm, a good switching it from left to right and back and forth and really picking their spots. It seemed like New Zealand were very adept at recognizing this is not a player we want dribbling away from us and towards our defense. Maybe she needs to go down.
And that's Tobin Heath, Carly Lloyd for the most part, were the two that they were quite happy to take down. Does some of this also go to... We talked about the US changing their style, right? And that they were this physically imposing team. And they could go direct to Abby Wambach and cause trouble that way. And you saw this US team try and play out of the back a lot more. I kind of think if the US had played their old style, even with this set of players, they probably would have scored more goals against New Zealand in a sort of less attractive football kind of way, less possession, but more direct. Yeah. It would have been more goals. So is it maybe just we're taking some time to adapt to the new style?
Yeah, I think so.
At least at this tournament level.
But then
is that worrying? To me, that's a little worrying.
No, see, I think it's the opposite for me. I think it makes me happy that Jill Ellis is sticking to what she's trying to do. Because, again, we've had this comparison many times.
Like Pep Guardiola.
Sure. But like I've made this comparison many times in different situations, but it reminds me of when you have like when you're coaching U10 and you have the big tall kid who's kind of fast and you put him up top because no one can handle him and he scores a ton of goals.
Is that Abby Wambach?
No, well, yeah. But then that player, not Abby Wambach, doesn't necessarily develop, so the time they're 14 and everyone is their size, everyone else can do that, and now they've caught you. And I think if the U.S. had come out against New Zealand, recognized, oh, we're bigger and faster, we can beat them, let's just lump the ball long, then it represents, number one, a dramatic shift in the tactics that you're trying to employ in this whole tournament. Number two, it means you're shifting into something that probably isn't going to work against the likes of France, the next opponent.
Yes.
So then it makes more sense in my mind to stick with what you're trying to do, to keep that game plan, get more polished at it, get new players in, sub them in so they get some minutes, so then everybody's kind of more on the same page going into the next game.
Well, should we talk about the times it definitely did work?
Sure.
And that would be the 2 goals that the United States scored.
Sure.
So let's start in what is the 9th or the 10th minute. It's a Carly Lloyd header, which you probably could not have put bets on this in Vegas before the tournament that Carly Lloyd would score a header.
You probably couldn't. I think it was off the books. It was just an assumed thing was going to happen. Yes.
But from a nice bit of skill from Tobin Heath, who first of all was fouled, right? Then she played in a free kick, which maybe we'll talk about later, because it looked like it was terrible, but we think we know what was happening. Then she got the ball back and did a couple of moves, put one New Zealand player on the floor, Duncan, and fooled another, crossed it for Carly Lloyd's head.
Yeah, and I think it was a perfect example of why New Zealand were fouling Tobin Heath as much as they could. Because, number one, I think she is a player where once you start fouling her, maybe she keeps trying to do those moves, and maybe they don't come off, and we did see her get dispossessed a fair number of times. Yeah. But it's also because once you are kind of having to chase Tobin Heath, and once you are sort of reacting to what she's doing, you are in big trouble.
You're off balance.
And that's what happened against New Zealand, is that first touch that she had. I think it was a Julie Johnson ball over the top. I could be wrong on that one.
Becky Sauerbrunn,
thank you. And she settles it perfectly and takes it away from the defender. So now the defender has to chase her down.
And you made that sound like it was 2 things, right? Yeah. Settles it and takes it away from the defender. The genius of Tobin Heath is that was 1 touch. For many other people, that's 2 touches.
With her right foot going to her left.
Yeah.
So it's not even that like she settled it to her right and then went. It really is that she brought that right foot across and put the ball right into her own path.
And then, this is the interesting thing to me, a faster player after that touch would be away down the line, right? If that's Mallory Pugh or Crystal Dunn, who did not start. Dunn did not start because Tobin Heath started this game instead. We thought it would be the other way around, right? Because Heath was carrying an injury.
Absolutely.
Seems she was plenty healthy.
Yep.
But that's the flaw in Tobin Heath's game, is that she's not lightning fast like those other players. So then the defender, I think it was Duncan, number 4, is able to catch her up.
Right, but in so doing is trying to get goal side of her and is trying to get in a good position and then kind of overcommits, and Tobin Heath is able to spot that and think, you're leaning the wrong way. I'm going to make you pay for that. And she does, because she does the...
She cut backwards?
I think she does the outside, outside, inside, outside move. So if you imagine...
Sounds right. I got confused just listening, but
It's basically, it's the common move, the really easy stuff you'll learn when you're like 11 and 12 and doing curver camps, is it's basically like outside, outside, inside. So it's 2 touches with the outside of your foot, and then you cut it back with the inside. That's like the quick move that you can do, and then you can do inside, inside, outside. And I think that's what the defender thought Tobin Heath was doing, was outside, outside, inside. And then Tobin Heath added one more touch, and the defender went the wrong way and then tried to catch up for it.
Yep.
Tobin Heath then fakes the first cross. 2 defenders bite on that one.
She pulled the trigger back and then didn't release it.
So it was just a series of like, oh no, ooh no, no. If you're a New Zealand fan. If you're an American fan, you were clapping.
Oh, you're going, oh yeah. And then
Kool-Aid Man.
And then she floats it to the back post, I think aiming for the head of Ali Long.
Yep.
I'm pretty certain.
Yep.
But Carly Lloyd instead sort of said, no, sorry, this is an international tournament? No, Carly Lloyd scores in international tournaments. So I'm going to get there first.
Correct.
She rises, heads it back across into the far post, where Julie Johnston, I might be wrong here, we haven't really talked about this, was offside, didn't touch the ball, so it's okay.
Right.
And Julie Johnston knew, right? She sort of deliberately doesn't touch that ball.
Yes, at least I hope she did. Maybe it was just selflessness, and she thought, no, Carly deserves this goal. Yeah. But I would like to think more so it was her awareness of where she was on the field. And then we don't know. We're going to, as we said on the last show, we're going to have the official referee consultant in studio next week. And we'll have to ask him because the linesman...
Is that booked now?
Not yet, no. We're working on it. Linesman has the flag up, and I don't know if that was saying that player is offside, but she wasn't involved, or if he's saying, like, she's offside, the play needs to stop. Either way, the referee says, don't worry about it. Goal stands.
Yeah, okay. Either way, goal stands.
Yes.
There was sort of a half-hearted... I think when the New Zealand defenders saw the flag, they were like, oh... And then,
yeah, exactly.
And then the rest of the half is what we're talking about, right? It's New Zealand fouling, New Zealand sometimes high pressing it, not really working, but also not really threatening. But then the US maybe over-possessing a little bit. I noticed Ali Long and Morgan Bryan would both come deep and receive the ball off of the US back four, and we'd build from there, but wasn't too direct, so it didn't really go anywhere. So no more goals until half-time. Another goal just after half-time.
Right.
So 30 seconds into the second half, Alex Morgan with a finish inside the near post.
Yep. And we had an email about this, right? Because we had the previous email listener question from Ed Diaratius saying, is like basically...
Has she lost her edge?
Has she lost her edge, Alex Morgan? And I guess his daughter, was it?
No, it was... so Ed tweeted... I sort of I've changed my mind. She hasn't lost her edge,
right?
Because his son, I think, said, "See, Dad, she hasn't lost her edge." It's really hard to argue with that near post finish.
Yeah, because and then we slowed it down. We watched it from a couple different angles. Alex Morgan picks out that spot.
Oh yeah,
so she
sees it.
She has, and we can talk more about maybe how she's able to have all that time on the ball.
We will.
But she basically the keeper slides over and does a very strange. She doesn't make herself bigger, the New Zealand goalkeeper. She doesn't make herself wider. She just kind of like keeps her feet underneath her, like kind of exactly shoulder length apart, maybe a little bit less, and does like this little like quick step shimmy over. It's like a crab, but it's not wide enough. And so she doesn't have a good center of gravity, so she can't get down low. And I think, to your point, I think you pointed this out, it seems maybe like she thinks she has the near post covered, that she thinks she's come across far enough that there's no way anyone's going to put it near post. But she's left a good yard or two open, and that's what Alex Morgan spots. That's where Alex Morgan finishes.
Absolutely. It's like sort of not quite outside of the foot, it's laces, but slightly to the outside, and then fired in at the near post so that it bends away and then in. Just a little bit, right? Not a big bend, but a little bend away and then in. Inside that near post.
You would think by now that opponents would note that the United States is, like, as a whole, a fan of shooting at the near post. Because they really do shoot from very tight angles where they don't have any business shooting, let alone scoring, and they do it consistently.
And I want to talk about the reason why the goalkeeper, Naylor, it is Naylor, I discreetly checked earlier, didn't get over to that near post to cover it properly. I think it's because the US moved the ball so quickly at the centre top of the box. I think it's Long plays the ball into Tobin Heath, who really quickly one-touch passes it to Morgan Bryan, who's at the very top of the box, who very quickly plays that through ball to Alex Morgan. The ball is at the top, and all of a sudden it's at the side, that she's ready for the shot from the centre, and then she has to quickly get over to cover the near post, and she's just not fast enough to get over there and cover it fully.
Ellie agrees.
Yeah.
We've talked about this.
She's dressed in the New Zealand uniform.
Very true. Good shout. More or less. She's got a little bit of white on the front. But otherwise, yeah. We've talked about this before, and I think we tend to categorize it as like Barcelona-style passing because that's, I think, where we're most familiar with it. But we've seen the U.S. men do it a couple times, and it made us very, very excited. We see the women do it routinely. And in this situation, what I mean is that Tobin Heath absolutely could have taken 2 touches and been in the exact spot where she passed the ball. Maybe 1 touch and been there.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that you don't necessarily need to dribble into space. You can use that pass to throw the defenders off, and that's exactly what she does. If she takes a touch across, those defenders close as they did. They probably win that ball or maybe concede a free kick. In this situation, that pass makes them scramble because now they can't really leave her, but they have to step to the pass. So now they all have to shift around, and when they shift, they leave space.
That's what happens. Number 2, Percival, is marking Alex Morgan when this passing sequence begins.
Right.
Heath and Bryan's quick passing confuses her. She scrambles over to cover Heath because Heath does a 1-2 essentially with Bryan, or the start of a 1-2 but doesn't receive the ball. So when she moves centrally, Percival goes with her. That's why Morgan is wide open on that sort of near left side.
And that really is some of the stuff that, like, it's so quick and it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, that was a decent pass. But really, that is the stuff that makes a team exceptional, I would argue.
Yeah.
That it's that, like, and that's the stuff that if you're coaching kids, you and I are working with a team where we're trying to coach some people, and that's the stuff that you wish you could show is why passing is important. That just that one tiny little 1-yard pass is enough to throw off an entire defense.
Because they're as close as you and I are now across this table. It's roughly the distance Tobin Heath passed that ball to Morgan Bryan so that Bryan could have the assist.
Right.
But this gets me to the idea. So obviously we've established Tobin Heath is important, right? Tobin Heath has the cross for the first goal and the pass before the pass for the second goal. Right? She's fouled consistently because New Zealand are terrified of all her dribbling tricks.
Right.
And yet, we were sort of more excited about this US team having Mallory Pugh down the left and Crystal Dunn down the right because there's just raw pace down and directness down both wings. Right. And it seems to me the trade-off with having Tobin Heath on the left is Mallory Pugh now has to play on the right, and doesn't have as good a game as we've seen.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, and so actually we had a scouting report, if you don't mind my reading it now, from Juan Carlos Salas, who
did this come in soon after the game?
I'm going to say minutes after the game, yes.
Fast scouting report.
He is scouting Mallory Pugh. He said, it was a short night for Mallory as she was subbed off in the 51st minute. He thinks it might have been precautionary since it looked like she got a minor injury early in the game in the first not very few minutes.
She did. It was a cross from Heath, and she got clipped as she went through to try and meet it.
Right.
I saw her hopping afterwards.
And then Juan Carlos speculates that maybe it's also when she landed. It seemed like she was grabbing her ankle and was trying to walk off the pain. But she did make a good run a few minutes later that led to a corner kick, which I think eventually led to a cross for the first goal, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, she later...
just did.
yeah, I'm quoting him, whatever. Yeah, you're right, good point. Anyway, later she did go down and walked off the field to be attended. Hopefully she'll be 100% by game 2. But I would say that stuff aside, she didn't have the strongest night, but I think that's because she's played out of position. Yeah. And you did see her, especially in the first half, playing on that right side, really coming inside a lot, cutting inside a lot. And it seemed like maybe that's because she wanted to be more central / maybe more on that left-hand side and kept drifting and then kept leaving space that New Zealand could exploit. Yeah. And it's something that I think Jill Ellis is definitely going to have to think about for the next game.
Yeah, because even though she's right-footed, it looks like she prefers to be on the left and cut in with her right foot. Right. We talked about the US finishing at the near post. That's what Mallory Pugh did against Costa Rica, right? She cuts in with her right, shoots with her right, scores inside that near post.
But does that from the left-hand side. Yeah. And then even, I forget, it was another SB Nation a person who was basically made the point that there was a 10-minute stretch when the two switched, Heath and Pugh, and that was when Pugh looked really dangerous and Tobin Heath did not. Right. And so it becomes an issue of who starts where in that next game, but maybe more on that later.
Oh, we will talk about that later when we preview the US versus France.
Sounds good to me.
Maybe one of the other problems for Pugh is that the left back for New Zealand was Ali Riley, who we talked about being on the Play podcast and talking to Bobby Warshaw, but she is also pretty fast. So I think Mallory Pugh couldn't fully use her speed, which really is her main weapon at this point. I mean, obviously she has a lot of mental skills as well for reading the game and exploiting things, but just in a foot race with Ali Riley, she still had the advantage, worth noting, but she didn't have the sort of overwhelming advantage that she would normally have against other fullbacks.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a fair observation.
But we're not worried about Mallory Pugh just yet, right? It's one game, there's plenty more games to go.
Well, I don't know, because I tend to, maybe think differently than a lot of people in this regard, but I think, so we talked about how Mallory Pugh has looked like she just belongs here, right? That she looks like she is at this level, and I think she is.
And she didn't look like she didn't belong here in this game, right? It just wasn't the sort of explosive, here's your superstar, she just scored a hat-trick game. Yeah.
And so I think what I'm trying to get at is that, like, she's looked like she totally fits in these friendlies where she's been in the U.S. playing on home soil, kind of, getting used to it. And I think she can be forgiven a little bit if maybe she's just a little bit loses focus because it's the Olympic Games, something that she's probably grown up watching her entire life and is excited to be participating in.
All 18 years of it?
Yeah, I mean, she was born, I think, after the U.S. started competing in the Olympics, the U.S. women. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I mean, she's 18. Yeah. So, yeah, she was born in 98, right? Ridiculous. Yeah. So her entire life, the U.S. has been playing in the Olympics. She's been watching it. She's been seeing it. So you can understand why then maybe, just maybe, the event might have kind of overawed her slightly.
Yeah.
So then we'll see how it goes.
If that was nerves, then they weren't too bad.
Exactly.
Right?
That's
it's
what
not
I'm
as
saying.
if she was jittery.
Yeah.
And again, it may be more about that early kick that she got and playing sort of in her least favoured position in terms of wings. Right?
Also those things, yeah. Probably more so those things.
Speaking of pressure, we can't not talk about the fact that Hope Solo was booed by the crowd, who would boo her intently and then often shout Zika after she had kick the ball.
Yes. Yeah, and at first I had a feeling that was what it was about because I wasn't watching with commentary. Mm-hmm. So I could like kind of hear the boos here and there. Basically, I had the commentary on. I just wasn't paying attention to it, is what I should say. And I was like, I wonder why they do. Oh, it's the Zika thing. It's definitely the Zika thing. And what I did not realize, I remember her earlier comments about it, like really early on. I did not see the tweet that she put out.
I didn't see that image until I think maybe either before or halftime of the game on NBC Sports. Yeah, but she's wearing like a beekeeper hat and she's got some insect repellent. Yeah. So it's obviously sort of almost a comedy response to the fact that there are Zika mosquitoes in Brazil. But I think the obvious thing is that is very offensive if you're Brazilian.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you said that, and I don't necessarily disagree, but why is that offensive? To say, like, there are mosquitoes carrying a potentially dangerous disease, I'm nervous by that, so here's all the bug spray I'm taking with me. Why is that offensive?
Because, as I understand it, do you remember we had Lane Vandenberg on the show to talk about Chinese soccer? But it turns out Lane was also in Brazil when she spoke to us. So we asked her, because it was around the time that the US team was talking about Zika in Brazil. We asked Lane, what are people talking about right there on the ground in Brazil in terms of Zika? And she said, actually, they're not that concerned about it because statistically it's not happening that often. And it's more of a big thing in the US that we're talking about more, and they're sort of thinking, why are they making such a big deal about it?
Right.
So I think when you know it's another country thinks you're literally like diseased, and then there's a player sort of kind of making jokes about that, and really like embarrassing you in a way.
Yeah.
I understand why you then get booed.
Yeah. I think also in my mind it's that she kind of...
If someone came to the US and was doing something similar, right? Like I can't even think of an American stereotype that I want to say on the show, but if someone picked a terrible thing about the country and used it like in a comedy tweet, that person would not be welcomed. This
is true, but I also think they would especially not be welcomed if they had made a comment, it had been rebutted, and then they made another joke about it. And that's what I think Hope Solo did. Because, again, this was a long time ago when the Zika outbreak first happened, that I remember her being interviewed and saying, I don't really feel comfortable going to Brazil. I don't know if it's something I want to do. I don't want to risk my health.
Which is an okay thing to say originally, right?
It is, but then I think, for there to be that response of like, look, it's really not that bad. There are preventative measures that can be taken. It's going to be okay. And then to do that tweet, I think it probably very much frustrates people because it sort of disregards that and maybe sheds more fear or sheds a bit more panic, a bit more like, oh no, it's still a thing. I forgot about that thing. Oh, maybe it's worse. Maybe she knows more than we do. She is a spokesperson for this tournament. She's a major personality. So maybe you have to kind of keep that in mind and not kind of stir up fear heading into this tournament.
And there was a lot of talk about how, she didn't let it affect her. And there were like no signs of nerves on Hope Solo's part. They were booing her as she was playing semi-difficult passes out of the back, right? And not kicking it long. But if she has even one mistake and concedes a goal, suddenly the narrative is going to change of like, maybe it affected her.
Yeah, that could be. I have a theory that just because of what's happened to her and what she has done to herself, and however you want to look at it, I think Hope Solo is not uncomfortable playing the heel. Do you know what that means?
I do.
Okay. I don't know how up on your wrestling you are.
Yeah.
But you've got
like
the face.
The villain in a play, sort of, right?
Yeah, you've got the face who's the good guy, and you've got the heel who's okay with being the bad guy and kind of maybe fuels off of it a bit. Yeah. And it does seem like Hope Solo does not shy away from confrontation. She is not afraid to speak her mind and take people on. And so I think she is the type of player.
Even her own teammates, if it's 2007.
This is true. So I would not be at all surprised if that just motivates her and makes her perform better, because it's like, oh, you guys are going to boo me? Well, then guess what? You're never scoring a goal on me. And I'm going to laugh and laugh.
It just occurred to me that at some point in this tournament, the US may face Brazil. And that's when it is... of importance, right? That's when it's actually newsworthy.
And I would say if and when the USA plays Brazil, if and when the US scores, watch Hope Solo celebrate, and we'll see just how happy she is to rub it in people's faces.
All right, Taylor, we're going to preview the USA versus France after this ad break. It's not really an ad break because we don't go anywhere.
Nope. We don't have like interlude music and like strange audio like dissonance or anything like that. No, we keep it as it is.
Instead, we just say today's show is sponsored by Fuji. Fuji is a returning sponsor. Taylor, please tell the people all about Fuji if they don't know.
I can do that. They basically take a childhood game and make it fast-paced and fun.
That's true.
They combine soccer and squash using a specially engineered rebounder to create a unique playing experience.
Those aren't their coffee points, right? This
They're
is what
not.
we've decided, that they take your childhood game and make it fast-paced and fun.
I think so, because that's what they do. I mean, it really is. It's so really quickly. So you have the rebounder, which is the net. You pull it tight, you set it up. It takes like 10, 15 minutes. You're good to go. You've got the court that's built in. You basically hit the ball against the rebounder. Ball comes back. It can bounce one. Doesn't necessarily have to bounce once. We had to figure that one out on the fly.
You did.
And then you basically keep going, keep score, and it is crazy addictive and crazy fun.
So it's like soccer squash, and you can play against each other. And Taylor and I have done that twice now, and we've filmed ourselves doing it. If you go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Total Soccer Show, you can see our two Fuchi videos where we played against each other. I'll put the links in the show notes as well.
Sounds like
if you would like to see. We are going to make another video very soon. I won the last round. I'm sort of ready to defend my crown.
Did you though?
I mean, there's video evidence. So we'll be doing that again in a week or so. But for today, because it's a US Women's National Team show, we were thinking if we were having someone play for us, a US Women's National Team player, in the contest between Taylor and I, the Fuchi contest, which player would we choose to represent us? So,
now, I think we did this with the men's team last time, and I believe I got to choose first. So this time, why don't you pick first?
Well, I want to talk it through a little bit. My first thought was Carly Lloyd.
Okay.
If only because you think, hat-trick in the World Cup final. She scored in this game, first game of the Olympics. She is someone you can absolutely rely on. But then, I mean, obviously great technique, great with her head, we know.
You're going to steal my person. Go ahead.
Well, but then it occurred to me that for Carly Lloyd, representing me in a Fuchi battle, which is what it's called when it's 1v1, a Fuchi battle, is not a big game for her. So maybe she'd be saving her best for somewhere else. I don't want someone who's going to be saving their best for the Olympics and the Women's World Cup. So no Carly Lloyd for me.
Okay.
Maybe Tobin Heath.
Yeah, that was in my top picks. Yep.
Was she your pick?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what you do.
So Tobin Heath has all kinds of tricks and skills, and she would, I think, be great at the freestyle Fuchi.
Yep.
But that's not what I'm in it for. I'm in it to win it, not in it to show off some tricks. So the player I
you still haven't picked your player, right?
In the end,
just want to make sure.
I'm going. Is Becky Sauerbrunn.
I knew you were going to do it. That's exactly who my first pick was. I knew you were going to do it.
So the reason I want Becky Sauerbrunn representing me,
jerk, yeah,
is she is so great at sort of
listeners. I scared my dog with that response, just in case you were wondering.
Reading the game, being in the correct position to receive the ball. And we talked on the last show about, or maybe the show before, about the way Becky Sauerbrunn plays the ball out of the back so accurately. She had one misplaced pass last night, and we got a tweet from Jim Brochard saying, what is happening? Becky Sauerbrunn just played the ball out of bounds.
Yeah.
Like, she's got that out of her system, she won't bring it to the Fuchi game. So positional sense and just surety, if that's a word, when she is playing the ball into the rebound.
That's the key point for me, because we've talked about this in Fuchi discussions past, that I tend to be a bit more juggle, maybe like a tiny little bit of the freestyler aspect of it.
Juggles are for muggles.
Right, well, there we go. And I think you are a little bit more 1 and 2 touch, play it simple, get it back on net, right? And I think Becky Sauerbrunn does both. So if we had done which player would you want to play with as your teammate, it would absolutely be Becky Sauerbrunn, because she balances out my juggles. But I think she herself
did it in this game. The ball to Tobin Heath, before Tobin Heath crosses the ball in, is Becky Sauerbrunn intercepting and then lifting a ball over, I think, Duncan to Tobin Heath. Perfect Fuchi technique and stuff.
Yeah, so we both pick Becky Sauerbrunn is basically the answer. But since I can't do that, I'll pick mine. But yeah, so she has that ability to play those kind of elaborate balls and be tricky, but then also just play nice, simple, and get the ball back in play.
But she's playing for me. She's not representing you.
Yep.
So who you got?
Hope Solo.
Oh, no.
Because there is no concern about Hope Solo not being competitive. I think she is that player who, like, I think it's like the Michael Jordan. There's many stories about him just being, whatever he's doing, he is 100% competitive. Doesn't matter if he's gambling, if he's playing golf, whatever it is, he is 100% in. He does not want to lose. He will do anything he can to win.
So do you want Michael Jordan or do you want Hope Solo?
Well, I think Hope Solo is the same. I think Hope Solo does not want to lose. She wants to be in the action. So this puts her in the action 100%. We know that she likes to win, that she's going to be competitive. So I think she's going to be scrapping. She will also probably, as we talked about, maybe she's okay with being the heel a little bit. Maybe she doesn't get out of Becky Sauerbrunn's way. Maybe she stands in the way. Maybe she blocks her off a little bit. Maybe she hits it a little bit too hard or a little bit too soft. Who knows?
Mentality-wise, I get it, but surely Becky Sauerbrunn is a better player with her feet than Hope Solo.
We can't say for sure, Daryl Grove. We can't say for sure. That's probably true. But I feel like Hope Solo, again, maybe she would cheat. We don't know. She uses her hand when Becky Sauerbrun's not around. Yeah. No, it's legal. So I have Hope Solo in there. And then I think my other pick, since you have taken away Becky Sauerbrunn for me, probably would be Tobin Heath. Just because she's demonstrated time and time again, she's got that really good touch. She's got the first touch, the second touch, the third touch, the eighth touch. There's also a great YouTube video of her. I can't remember what it's for. It might just be goofy, but it's her like in her room with her soccer roommate, for U.S. national team roommate, and she decides she wants to go juggle. And then it's just her, I think, walking around L.A., like the entire city of L.A., just consistently juggling. So she's proven she's got that touch, even if juggles are for muggles.
Not when Tobin Heath does it.
No, when she does it, they're well done. Yes. They're never juggling out of frame because they've lost complete control of the ball, which I did multiple times.
So there you go. If you would like to buy a Fuchi rebounder for yourself, you go to Fuchi.com. It's spelled FUTCHI.com, and you can use the coupon code Total Soccer, lowercase or one word, Total Soccer, for 15% off at Fuchi.com. And we will also be making another Fuchi video in the very near future.
Yes,
sir. I think we're actually going to do it tomorrow is the plan, we're hoping.
And we're just going to hope that it's not 105 degrees outside this time.
Not this time. Not this time.
that we don't have a moment when Daryl says, "Do you want to do one more?" And I say, "No, I can't do it." Because that's pretty much what happened last time.
I have no hydration left in me.
And then I think we contemplated getting an Uber back to the office, which is about 6 blocks. And we both kind of agreed that while that would be way better for us, it would ruin that Uber driver's day.
In terms of sweatiness in the cab and just the very short distance.
Yes, and also pounds and pounds of soccer equipment would probably not be great either.
So we're not sponsored by Uber.
No.
We are sponsored by Fuchi.com.
Yep.
Use code TOTALSOCCER for 15% off. Thank you to Fuchi for sponsoring today's show. We're glad they are still our sponsor.
We are indeed. So Becky Sauerbrunn, Hope Solo, Carly Lloyd, and Tobin Heath might not be playing Fuchi with us, but they will likely be playing against France on Saturday night.
So the US's second game of the Olympics is against France, who are, they weren't always, but they seem to be at this point regarded as one of the world powers in women's soccer. They beat Colombia 4-0 in the opener.
Yep.
That means France are top of the group because they have a better goal difference than the US right now. This is the real test for the US women's national team.
This is true.
And we have a question.
In this group, yeah.
In this group, yeah. And, I mean, maybe if they meet again later in the tournament, right? This could be one of the dangerous teams. We have a question, Taylor, from Ben Weiler. Ben says, what is the best way for the US women's national team attacking players to break down the French defence? The reason he asks, he says, is the US has some extremely talented attackers in Morgan, Lloyd, Pugh, Dunn, etc. But the French team defensively seems to be a cohesive unit who all seem to play for Lyon. They do, right?
Yep.
It doesn't allow goals. They have not allowed a goal in the last 7 games and only allowed 5 total goals since the Women's World Cup. Plus, France has some history of beating the US and could have easily won our last matchup in the She Believes Cup if they capitalised on their early chances. Good news, Alex Morgan capitalised on her 91st minute chance to win that game 1-0.
It's true.
All right, Taylor, so how does the US beat this French team?
Well, I have 2 answers. One of them is more complex, so I'll give the easier first.
Okay.
I think it's that you have faith in your team, that you have faith in your abilities and your diverse attacking options. So I do think I would prefer, honestly, to see Mallory Pugh, although I've been told it's supposed to be Mal Pugh. Thank you. Ellie agrees. Mal Pugh. I think I would rather see Pugh and Dunn start because I think that gives you that pace, that creativity, and that cleverness. That then you've got that out wide. You've got Carly Lloyd through the middle. You've got Alex Morgan through the middle. We know that you have other options that can come forward and get some goals for the U.S. So I think you back your like Swiss Army knife of an attack against a very like, forgive me, but like a well-disciplined team because they're all so familiar with each other. That's how you go about breaking them down.
But you're advocating for not playing Tobin Heath and starting with Pugh and Dunn instead?
Potentially, only because I think you want to play players where they're comfortable. Yeah. And I think between Tobin Heath and Mallory Pugh, maybe Mallory Pugh gives you a bit more pace than Tobin Heath, and maybe that's not the worst thing because France against Colombia, they did a very good job of breaking, so we know they can break, but they do get a little bit stretched because they try to move people forward quickly. Yeah. And with that, if you can hit them and get them maybe off, like, you know, on their heels a little bit or out of position, then you can capitalize on that. You get them stretched, you get a goal. I think pace is more likely to help you with that. That said, I don't think that's what's going to happen.
I think if we're going this way, there's an argument for maybe keeping Heath on the left, which I find it really hard to drop her after she's just had an assist and an MLS assist. And she's experienced, right, in terms of tournament football.
Yep.
and then Crystal Dunn on the right,
and that's
where
what
she
that's
is
what I
most
think Jill
comfortable.
Ellis is going to do.
And then Pugh is the substitute. And there is no shame in being an 18-year-old substitute. Even if you're the future best female player in the world, there is no shame in being a substitute in a big game in an Olympic tournament and coming off the bench and causing mayhem.
Yeah, I think
in the 60th minute.
Maybe I'm biased because I just want a member of the TSS scouting network on the field, and I don't think Lindsay Horan's going to start. But I do think that's what Jill Ellis will do, especially.
You think Dunn and Heath will start?
Yes, because I think Mal Pugh came out, as we said, early in that second half with an injury. It might have been preventative or precautionary, but maybe that's enough for her to be held out of starting, and then you use her as that very dramatic impact sub in the 60th or 70th minute, especially if it's a hot one. It's a tired French defense. Maybe then you bring her in to plague people. But I would say, again, I don't think this is what's going to happen. I think she will start Tobin Heath and Crystal Dunn. But you could also make the argument that you start Pugh and Dunn, you use that pace to just wear down those French defenders. Then you bring in your skillful players who can dribble through a tired defense, maybe draw a penalty or a foul, maybe get a goal.
We'll find out. The one thing I would say is you don't want to be putting crosses into the box against France because Captain Renard is there. Do you remember we talked about her during the Women's World Cup?
Yeah.
She is 6'2". She is 6'2". She is heading crosses away all day. She's going to beat Alex Morgan in the air. She's going to beat Carly Lloyd in the air. I feel like it will be sort of no contest. So to me, it's more about balls on the floor than anything else, right?
Yeah, but to me, and I said, sorry, do you have more about the French defense? Because I have a different take on it.
Please go for it.
Because I was going to say my second answer was a bit longer, because my second answer is that I'm not so worried about the French defense. I'm worried about the French attack. That's more where I would say the U.S. needs to place some emphasis, because that's where, especially, we talked about Becky Sauerbrunn covering the whole left side if Megan Klingenberg gets forward. Yeah. We talked about people getting maybe drawn out of position a little bit, about some sloppy passing, about kind of being beat on the long ball a couple times. There was that one with Julie Johnson where the foul was eventually called.
Tussle?
Yeah, foul was eventually called going the USA's way, but that easily could have been a ball through and the US could have struggled. And against a team with a little more talent and a little more cohesiveness, they could be punished.
Yeah, so the very brief breakdown is everyone knows look out for Louisa Neshib. She is number 14. She has all kinds of style and technique and creativity. She is super, super dangerous. You've got to watch out for her. And Le Sommer, Eugénie Le Sommer, number 9.
That's beautiful pronunciation, by the way. Way better than I could ever hope for.
Well, I looked it up before the game, before the podcast. She looked really dangerous against Colombia. Was it Le Sommer with the header? It was, right?
The diving header in the second after it came off the bar. Yeah. And she had the ball into the box, the really dangerous ball that was turned in for the own goal to start the scoring for France.
Yeah.
So she contributes to 2 goals. Then the other one I would say is Camille Abile. I did not look up how to pronounce that one.
Sounds good to me.
But she's the one who has that shot from 20, 25 yards out that hits the crossbar that then falls to
Le Sommer.
Thank you. And then she also hits the free kick goal later on, from just on top of the box, maybe 18, 19 yards out, that bends it into that near post. So both of them are capable of combining together to get goals and scoring individual goals.
And one player that I know she didn't start, I don't know if she came on, the winger Tomis, who is lightning fast, had to literally choose between, do I become a soccer player, do I become a track and field athlete, right? She is that quick. She is scary quick. And it's not often the US has to worry about pace, but if Tomis starts or comes off the bench, I would worry about pace.
I would too. And that's why I think we did see the U.S. again go with that formation similar to the one against Costa Rica that looks more like a 4-4-2 than anything else.
When we're defending, definitely.
Yeah.
Because Lloyd joins Morgan and puts pressure on the defense.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised if we go back to more of a 4-2-3-1 if you see the U.S. focus a little bit more on crowding that middle, getting numbers in there just to clog it up, make it difficult for France to get any kind of quick passing through the middle.
So Ali Long definitely stays proper defensive midfield number 6 type role, right? Morgan Bryan, I think when the US has the ball, goes forward. Yeah, you may see Morgan Bryan sit in a little more, right? So you have 2 holding midfielders just to have some extra security. The one thing I would say is the New Zealand game wasn't that exciting, right? Because the US didn't turn it on, but they also never looked like losing, so there wasn't like a high wire element of danger. Against France, I feel like it's going to be a lot more open, and I want to say it's going to be a lot more end-to-end.
Yeah, I think so.
There's too much attacking talent at both ends, and 2 teams that seem determined to play good soccer in terms of quick passing, quick movement, and getting the ball at the field.
Yep.
In a good way, not a direct way, that I feel like you're in for a really good game.
Yeah.
I almost guarantee it. I'm scared to say that in case suddenly it's terrible.
I'll almost guarantee it. That's what most companies go for. I think that's just as good as a guarantee.
Satisfaction almost guaranteed.
More or less partially guaranteed.
So that game, once again, is Saturday.
Yeah.
Sorry, the game
Saturday.
is Saturday, 4:00 Eastern. It's on the NBC Sports Network, and we will be back with our review by Monday morning latest.
Yeah, you looked at the calendar this time. That's an improvement. Last time you went clock, then calendar. This time you just went straight to the calendar.
There. For a small studio, surprisingly hard for me to find things in here. I don't come here very often.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
No.
So, Taylor, on yesterday's show,
yes,
we did a forcible draft of US men's national team players to the English Premier League.
Doesn't sound good at all.
We only did 8 teams. We invited listeners to let us know if they had any ideas for which teams could use or could accommodate a US national team player, and we got some responses.
We did. First, from Christopher Klein, he says, Man United could use John Brooks to pair with Chris Smalling. It would be 2 big athletic centre backs that I think would go well together.
I think so too. Left centre back, right centre back.
Yeah. The problem is that Manchester United's tradition with Americans is you bring them in at academy level, and then you build up hope that they're maybe going to one day make the first team, and then you sell them. So that's what would have to happen with John Brooks here.
They both go and win the ball.
Yeah.
So you don't really have one stays, one goes, the Brooks and Smalling. You have both go and get the ball, which could be amazing.
It could
but could also be trouble.
This is true.
Christopher has he sent 3 suggestions. Christopher's second suggestion was Fabian Johnson to be in the rotation of outside mids with Lamela and Eriksson at Tottenham.
And DeAndre Yedlin wept. American comes in and goes right into that lineup, goes right into that consideration. Yeah. Would not be great.
I did see a story today. Yedlin not included in the most recently named squad for a preseason friendly. Sorry, I can't remember who against. But another rumour linking Yedlin with Sunderland. So it may be
who have officially appointed David Moyes. We can say that now for sure.
Official. Okay, so the Yedlin back to Sunderland move may be back on. And he's just got a couple of good performances for Spurs at left back under his belt.
Yes, and before we get emails from it, that David Moyes move may have been confirmed 3 weeks ago for all we know. It's just one that... It's one that
Sam hasn't been England manager that long.
That's a good point. But yeah, it's basically been every time we've talked about it, we've been like, we should probably figure that out for sure. And then we just keep forgetting to until it comes up on the next show. So this time I've actually Googled it prior to recording.
Christopher has one more.
He says, and finally, I think Everton could really use a player like Tim Howard, a veteran leader who is still capable of being a good goalkeeper as long as the defence in front of him isn't a sieve. A sieve? Sieve?
Sieve.
There we go, sieve.
You know what sieve is?
Yeah.
Like a colander?
Yeah, it's a colander. Yeah, I just never know how to pronounce that word properly. It's one of the many that we've established today that I don't quite know how to pronounce. I wonder how they could find a player like Tim Howard.
We'll never know.
We shall never know, yeah.
We also got one from Ryan Connor, who was also thinking about John Brooks. Oh, he's responding to your John Brooks to Arsenal idea. Okay. Ryan says, John Brooks probably wouldn't be a reserve to Mert, who I assume is Per Mertesacker, and that Ryan is an Arsenal fan because of that familiarity term. At this point, Per, first name basis now, Per Mertesacker, lost playing time to Gabriel at the end of the year. Oh, so maybe Brooks straight in at the Arsenal team.
I think actually I kind of thought he would maybe beat out Per Mertesacker.
Yeah.
I was just a little bit scared that I would hear from 8 million Arsenal fans about how dare you.
I would say again the problem here is Laurent Koscielny is the left centre back. John Brooks is the left centre back.
Yeah, that's fine.
Someone's gonna have to play on their weaker foot or be slightly out of position.
Mallory Pugh. Sean Sullivan says Aaron Johansson loaned to West Ham United.
Doesn't offer any supporting evidence.
Yeah, I guess he wouldn't be taking part in preseason since he's still injured. You did some research on that one, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard. He's not even fit enough to be included in Werder Bremen's preseason. So Aaron Johansson is slowly but surely getting himself fit, and we just got to hope for the best and see what he's like when he comes back.
But I guess if you want to go with, let's think about it for a second. Aaron Johansson, I would say, at least before his injury, pacey and clinical goal scorer. So yeah, I mean, I guess that fits with West Ham's general style of play.
Is he going to displace Enner Valencia?
Yes.
Is he?
Yeah, I've decided that.
You've decided.
I'm fine with that, yeah. Final one comes from Ryan Potts. He says, I think Swansea could improve the squad by adding Clint Dempsey.
Oh, yeah, okay. That worked for me.
Despite his advanced age of 33, the Swans need another striker as they currently have no out-and-out strikers with only Marvin Emnes and occasionally Andre Ayew featuring as a number 9. With the departure of Eder permanently, Pelosi and Gomis on a loan, Dempsey would add depth to the squad.
I would like to see Dempsey back in the Premier League. It might be too late, right?
Yeah, maybe. You never know. I mean, Seattle aren't having the strongest of seasons. Maybe he wants to just keep that career going, get a little bit more attention on his name. And so he does a loan for like 3 weeks or something.
Well, it's also forcibly drafted, right? So he doesn't get a choice.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the forcible draft. Of course.
So I think we've covered... Okay, how many new teams have we covered here? Man United, Tottenham, Everton, we already covered.
Swansea, West Ham.
Swansea and West Ham. So we've now covered 10 of the 20 teams.
Yep.
If you have listened to yesterday's show, the Wednesday show, and today's show, the Thursday show, and you have ideas for any of the other 10 teams in the Premier League and which US national team players they could use in a forcible draft that is part of some sort of UK-US trade deal, please email or tweet us and let us know which US players should play for which of those Premier League teams.
Come on, Sunderland fans. We've heard of West Ham. What? Crystal Palace. There's some more out there, right?
Well, yeah.
Hull City.
There's 10 more.
Bournemouth. Lots more.
They already have Emerson Hyndman.
Middlesbrough, they already have Brad Guzan.
Yeah, they do. So, Taylor, on behalf of me, I say to you, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today on the Total Soccer Show.
Dale Grove, both Ellie and I, thank you for talking to us today on the Total Soccer Show.
She was very well behaved.
Yeah, outside of the few times she disagreed with my points and let me know about it. Yes, she was very well behaved.
Listeners, thank you for spending time with us. Fucci, thank you. Well, it's not really a person, but Fucci the company, thank you for sponsoring today's show. Again, it's Fucci.com, Futchi.com. Coupon code TotalSoccer for 15% off your Fucci rebounder. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.